Welcome back, my friends, to another Good Game Empire video, to a special Good Game Empire video. The Easter update, featuring the return of the gacha event, is literally just around the corner. In fact, Good Game Empire is faster than I expected. The gacha event is here. So close, in fact, that I can upload this video. Honestly, a gacha event like this is really just there to ramp up the gambling element and to get the people who have way too much money to part with it. We'd already talked about this, and Good Game Empire has confirmed it again in the community hub with a new announcement. Red gear is coming back. We can see that here. Supposedly requested by many, rightfully discussed at length on Discord, and with no concrete details, I'd like to take another look on it today. But today I am not alone. I asked a few other content creators what they think of it and have Breor's permission to use some of its videos as well. So here's what you need to know. This video will be in English. Ekto's segment will have English subtitles and everything else will have German subtitles. You can also find an uncut and a German version on my other channels. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to take another look at the introduction of the red equipment. In their announcement, Good Game claimed that many players wanted the red equipment back. Clearly, they twisted some people's words. As you can see here, by Aziz must be kidding. What player in their right mind would ask for the return of red pieces? A player who asked for the return of red pieces is Breor, but we're talking about his words later. But firstly, I'd like to thank Breor. Thanks to his research and videos on Empire over the years, we've gained a good understanding of the red equipment.
In a Q2, Q3 roadmap, Good Game Studios reiterated its focus on performance and fairness improvements. It also made some extremely unpopular announcements. I have quite a bit to say about these announcements. As a heads up, for part of while I'm talking, I'll show some PvP footage on the screen. It's unrelated. First, Good Game Studios said that it planned to implement strict caps on the effects players could receive from gems. This was a big deal, as Good Game Studios had recently added paid equipment sets like the Elementalist and the Legacy of the Eagle Demon that had extremely powerful gems. While the sets themselves would not be affected, players had figured out something that Good Game Studios apparently had not. Players had taken those extremely powerful gems and added them to other equipment sets in the game. Take, for example, the 5-piece Winged Knight set. This practice resulted in commanders and castellans more powerful than Good Game Studios had apparently contemplated, and it was the reason for the change. The issue, of course, was that anyone could have told Good Game Studios that players would do this. Creative use of gems was not only fair play, it was good strategy in what was supposed to be a strategy game. And Good Game Studios was profiting from the practice too, since it meant players were purchasing more premium equipment. Indeed, many players believed, reasonably in my view, that Good Game Studios had delayed implementing this nerf specifically to encourage players to spend money on the gems. I remember reading about one player on the forums who had purchased 4 gems from the Legacy of the Eagle Demon set, specifically intending to use them with his Winged Knight set. Of course, now he couldn't do that. No longer being able to use something you had bought for the purpose you intended felt like, and in just about every way was, a bait and switch. Naturally, the forums lit up with player complaints. In response, Good Game Studios created a new vendor called the Apprentice Blacksmith. Players would be granted a certain amount of apprentice tokens as compensation to spend on new equipment. It was a good way of completing the unfinished LTPE sets most players had several of in their inventory. Gem removal was also temporarily made free. If anything good came out of the gem effect cap controversy, it's that the Apprentice Blacksmith provided the genesis for the Master Blacksmith, which was added in 2019. In the same roadmap, Good Game Studios also announced its decision to pause running the Battle for the Royal Capital. We talked about the many
It was introduced back in 2013, but at the time it was almost exclusively for pay-to-win players. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Good Game Empire probably looked too far back and thought it would be a great idea. But I don't want to get too far off track. After all, with the recent introduction of the red equipment, Good Game Empire seems to be facing yet another major controversy. That's because this fantastic new red equipment had already sparked a major controversy back in 2017. The deciding factor was the red equipment's special feature, the bonus effects. Even though you all know this, I'd like to bring it up. Red gear was special back then, and it still has a unique feature compared to relic gears that's been available since 2019. Additional effects unlocked based on the number of pieces red gear you have in the set. You can see here the Khan Storch Castellan plus 10 is some other, but here you can see I have the set complete and got the number 5 plus 20 strength in attack on the courtyard of the defending Castell. Looks great, doesn't it? This means that you not only get the effects provided by individual pieces of equipment, but also additional effects that further increase your travel speed, combat power, and armor protection, so on, so on, so on. At first, there were small sets that you could combine. So 2 pieces on armor, 3 pieces, 4 pieces, as you can see here, and the set was complete. With the introduction of gems and skins, the number of individual items increased to 9 or 10 in the later updates, as you can see here. 9 different elements on the set. But it was clear, even back then, that Good Game Empire hadn't fully tested every update, as the system wasn't fully developed, which, as mentioned earlier, led to a major controversy in 2017. With the introduction of relic gear, the red gear was phased out. But I don't want to go into too much detail here, so I recommend checking out Breor's video from 2019, specifically the part about the relic equipment.
Relic equipment, which worked its way into the game in May, represented Good Game Studios' effort to once again allow players to design custom sets. Good Game Studios made relic equipment obtainable via event quests, the Alliance Smithy, and a new quest chain that introduced the feature. I think it was a mixed success. Relic sets were certainly more customizable than the unique sets Good Game Studios had added ever since the gem effect cap controversy in 2017. After that debacle, Good Game Studios have been careful to ensure that the most important equipment effects, such as extra courtyard strength or ranged or melee combat strength, were generally reserved for complete set bonuses. That way, individual set pieces could be kept basically useless, and players couldn't find unintentionally strong combinations. However, relic equipment, I think, lacked the uniqueness, for lack of a better word, of the unique sets. Players would no longer use commanders that signified any particular level of achievement in any of Empire's events, for example. Because relic equipment was usually obtained with random effects, and always with random stats, I don't think it was necessarily as motivating as, say, an event reward as unique pieces had been. Additionally, relic equipment was arguably a bit overcomplicated. Beginning later in the year, in September to be specific, relic equipment not only displayed raw percentages, down to a decimal point, but also a somewhat confusing star system. There were 6 rarity levels: 1 blue, 2 empty, 2 blue, 1 empty, 3 blue, 1 silver, 2 blue, 2 silver, 1 blue, and 3 gold. Got that? Relic equipment could convey a greater variety of effects than all previous levels of equipment. Gem and hero effects, for example, now differed by the type of target, whether NPC or real enemy player. Combined, this meant that while players could customize their castellans and commanders, they'd need to find pieces with the right amount of very specific effects. As a result, their commanders and castellans would mostly end up feeling the same.
It's now 2026, and Good Game has promised a return to the roots. The backlash on Discord was intense, even though this red equipment had apparently already taken place before the announcement, especially in from the event gear for Rift events. The event commanders who helped players defeat the zombie and mushrooms are red, and depending on the combination of individual items in these gear sets, they provide additional bonuses. These bonuses should not be underestimated. Plus 200% attack speed, plus 50% tempo, plus 100% defeat, and so on and so on. Especially significant reductions in the combat strength for the defending troops. That is the zombies or mushrooms special event. These are special effects for the mushroom or zombie event. Of course, the stats on the new sets, which are also supposed to be available for PvP, aren't quite as high. Nevertheless, Good Game has decided to reset the old maximum stats for this return. This means the red equipment items quickly become significantly stronger than the relic items. Other creators has noticed this as well. Oh, fuck it. This means the red equipment quickly became significantly stronger than the relic items. Other creators have noticed this as well, as you can see here. Mostly this is a 5 to 10% upscale of the old capes. This is just for decorations, but they are on to. First, I will summarize Breor's thoughts, which he already shared in his very detailed video.
This is a whole new category of equipment. We've never seen anything like this in the game before, except, I suppose, for Rift equipment, which is even more powerful, but which is event specific. And I have a lot of questions about this. It sure seems like others in the community do as well. I have to say that the Community Hub post leaves a lot of things unanswered. Some of my questions are simply, can we expect these new pieces to behave like regular unique equipment? In other words, can they be combined with old red equipment that we might have lying around in our inventories, or which we can purchase at the equipment trader? How about, will these pieces be able to be upgraded at the Technicus? And if we scroll down here, we can see that Good Game Studios has provided some stats that are equipment piece specific. Are these the fully teched stats, or are they not? Will Good Game Studios expect players to spend those 20 million coins to bring their brand new premium commander that last 2% of the way, all the way up until the cap? Ultimately, not all of these questions are going to be game-breaking in importance, but I'm curious, so we'll see what happens. If we go back to that whole combine the new and old unique equipment thing, that was actually a big feature in the game years ago, and it's one that caused some trouble. There was a big controversy, and I'm concerned that it could happen again, because you can see that these gems here really, honestly, have the most important stats: the melee and ranged combat strength, the courtyard combat strength, so on and so forth. So if somebody wins even just the gems from the Gacha event, if they can put those gems on just a regular unique set that they may have had in their inventory from 10 years ago, now all of a sudden they've got the best commander in the game, which is kind of interesting. But under that heading, so to speak, they have these notes here where they seem to allude to the heroes for these equipment sets, which, keep in mind, are important because they provide not only some of these bonuses here, stealth, return travel speed, speed bonus, which is obviously important for PvP, but this is what's going to complete your set and get your set bonus of 3 additional waves, which is obviously critical, right? This would imply that those pieces of equipment are not only ultra rare in the gacha, but are actually the number one top ranking reward. You've also got this tag here of temporary equipment. What is that? There is no elaboration on that. I haven't even seen that being discussed by other players or YouTubers. So I've got a lot of questions here, and I hope Good Game Studios can answer them before players will be spending hundreds upon hundreds of dollars in the game to get this stuff. But let's be honest, that's exactly what players will do. Here's another question that I have, and this goes back to what I had said in my previous video about being quote-unquote delighted if Good Game Studios were to choose to release more unique equipment in the game. Obviously, I meant that in the sense of equipment that would be accessible to free-to-play players, not in gacha events like this. But could this possibly mean that Good Game Studios will do that in the future? Well, we know one thing that they're going to do, and that is more of these gacha sets. They've already teased a summer sale that will feature a Castellan. Basically, the point of saying that is that if you are a paying player, you should buy your premium PvP set now so that you can use it before it becomes obsolete this summer once a truly gargantuan Castellan is released. But so far, we've seen no indication from Good Game Studios that they will release free-to-play unique equipment sets.
Breor is one of the oldest active creators still making videos about Good Game Empire. His opinions on gambling and the pay-to-win factor is pretty clear. The idea should be to make more equipment available to everyone, rather through in-game rewards or milestones, as was the case back then with equipment for the King of Shadows. The community didn't want to get very little equipment in exchange for spending real money. Or did they? Ekto is a German-speaking veteran of the game. Let's see what he has to say about it. Or does he say about this?
Hallo und herzlich willkommen hier auf dem Kanal von Torux. Ich bin Ekto Wolle und ich darf hier kurz ein paar Fragen beantworten. Das mache ich mir eben kurz mal. Und ich spiele uns gerade bei den Raven Samurai. Und wir machen auch gerade das Rift-Event und sind da gerade auf Level 13, falls sich irgendjemand fragt, was ich gerade nicht bei der Fleischwurst mache. Gut, schön, dass wir das geklärt haben. Die erste Frage, die ich hier natürlich habe, ist, hast du früher schon mal mit rotem Equipment gespielt? Falls ja, wie war das Spielerlebnis? Was hast du mit dem roten Equipment besonders gemacht? Was hat das rote Equipment besonders gemacht? Ich fand das besonders Equipment deswegen gut, weil du zum Beispiel auch, ich guck mal ganz kurz, ob ich noch ein rotes Equipment habe. Ja, ich glaube, ich habe noch den hier, den Eis-BV habe ich noch, ja, den Eis-BV habe ich noch. Das rote Equipment war deswegen cool, weil du halt, wenn du alle Teile zusammen gemacht hast, hattest du extra so einen extra Bonus bekommen, dass du halt nochmal wieder zum Beispiel so einen bestimmten Bonus hattest. Und der war zum Beispiel auch cool, wenn du halt ganz zu Anfang halt auch damit angefangen hast. Ich habe mir zum Beispiel ganz zu Anfang, wo ich auf D1 angefangen habe, wieder neu, hatte ich mir dann auch zu Anfang halt ein rotes Equipment geholt. Beziehungsweise jetzt auch nachher auf World 2 zum Beispiel. Aber zu der Frage kommen wir auf jeden Fall gleich. Die nächste Frage, hast du in der letzten Zeit nochmal rotes Equipment beim Ausrüstungshändler gekauft? Falls ja, warum? Was hast du dir davon versprochen? Ja, World 2, World 2 haben wir neu angefangen. Wir wurden zwar sehr schnell einfach auch hochgeboostet von, GGE danach auf Level 70, aber vorher dachte ich mir, wirklich da irgendwie an gute Feldchen ranzukommen, war so ein bisschen schwieriger. Von daher habe ich mir dann halt auch rote Teile dann einfach gekauft. Und hatte mir dann auch einfach einen roten Feld, ich glaube, ich habe auch einen roten BV einfach auch geholt. Weil das irgendwie auch für mich einfacher war. Das nochmal dazu. Das haben wir roten Teil nochmal versprochen. Welche Vorteile hat das rote Equipment für dich gegenüber Relikt gehabt? Verfügbarkeit, Feature, Vollständigkeit, Felder. Ich fand, was das rote Equipment cool war zum Thema Relikt, war halt einfach, dass du halt ein Set hattest. Also du hattest ja meistens diese roten Sets so ungefähr. Und die konntest du so ungefähr auch alle dann zusammen spielen. Und hattest dann halt auch eine Möglichkeit, die auch relativ gut halt einfach durchzuspielen. Also beziehungsweise hattest du auch wirklich eine Möglichkeit, die auch alle halt wirklich gut halt einfach auch zu haben. So hast du dann dein Set einfach nur gehabt und konntest mit dem Set dann wirklich einfach auch halt, also wusstest genau, das Teil kommt dahin, Teil kommt dahin. Dann kriegst du einen extra Bonus und das war halt einfach, ich fand vom Set her war es ein bisschen fand ich persönlich einfacher. Was erwartest du vom neuen roten Equipment? Ich glaube, erstmal erwarte ich einfach gar nichts davon. Also ich gucke mir erstmal an, wie das halt reinkommt, wie viel davon im Spiel kommt. Und bis wir wirklich, also bis ich, sage ich mal, als Free-to-Play-Spieler, vielleicht, dass jetzt Content Creator da irgendwie vorher rankommt, das kann natürlich sein. Ich bin da aber nicht wirklich ganz von überzeugt, von daher denke ich halt einfach, das dauert bestimmt noch mindestens ein Jahr oder auch vielleicht 1,5 Jahre, bis wir da vielleicht mal irgendwann so ungefähr an die roten Teile rankommen, weil die, denke ich mal, zur Zeit noch recht rar sind. Und das wird, denke ich mal, auch in längerer Zeit auch noch so bleiben. Von daher, schwierig. Welche Fähigkeiten muss das Equipment haben, damit du es benutzt? Siehe Rift. Ja gut, Rift-FHs habe ich auch noch. Stimmt, die sind auch rot. Da habe ich ja sogar auch noch ein paar. Die sind nämlich hier hinten. Hier habe ich noch bezüglich noch einen. Hier habe ich einen noch ohne Hate. Hier habe ich noch einen, der nicht so ganz ausgebaut ist. Hier habe ich auch noch welche, so ungefähr. Und hier ist übrigens der Ding weg. Wie lange läuft der eigentlich noch? Der läuft noch ein bisschen länger. Warum ist der eigentlich weg? Scheiße. Na egal. Auf jeden Fall habe ich ja die Risszeile da. Und ja, die nutze ich auf jeden Fall noch. Aber ansonsten generell, ja, hoffe ich mir einfach, dass zum Beispiel, dass wenn du die alle halt zusammenbaust, wenn du wirklich alle Teile hast und die wirklich alle zusammenbaust, zum Beispiel auch wie beim Eis-BV, dass dann halt einfach alles halt einfach auch zusammen passt und du dann halt nicht so viel rumsuchen musst. Ich fand das schon immer bei den Relikt-Teilen schon immer schlimm, wenn du die Teile halt immer erst suchen musstest. Das gehört dahin, das gehört dahin. Das ist doch irgendwie auch alles. Ja, das wäre in dem Sinne einfach einfacher, weil du einfach nur gucken musst, okay, das Teil habe ich, das Teil habe ich, setzt alles zusammen und weißt, okay, circa wie gut wird dein FH bezüglich deinem BV, musst du ja nicht so viel halt hin und her bauen. Finde ich schon wirklich angenehmer. Welche Gefahr siehst du in dem neuen Equipment mit höherem Potenzial zusätzliche Wellen, Kombinationbarkeit mit rotem Equipment? Ja, die haben halt krasse Werte, ne? Ich denke mal, die Leute, die haben, also die sich wirklich die zu Anfang haben können, haben im PvP einen kleinen Vorteil. Aber es wird auch nur eine Handvoll Leute sein, das werden meistens so die Top 10 Spieler sein. Und die werden einen, glaube ich, eher nicht angreifen. Also ich mit meinen, jetzt mittlerweile schon ein bisschen, mittlerweile ca. 6 Millionen Machtpunkte, ich werde nicht vom Top-Spieler angegriffen. Also das passiert in den seltenen Fällen. Und wenn er mir seinen roten BV, ich meine, FH zeigen möchte, nicht BV, Entschuldigung. Er wird es wahrscheinlich tun, aber sonst glaube ich eher weniger. Und daher sehe ich da nicht so das große Problem drin an. Also die meisten greifen ja dann wirklich mit einem guten Feldherrn auch andere gute Spieler an, wo es dann einfach auch mehr Sinn einfach macht. Was hältst du davon, dass wir das Equipment voraussichtlich bisher nur durchs Glücksrad und Pay-to-Win erhalten können? Neues Equipment ist halt besser. Das ist ein Pay-to-Win-Spiel. So. GGE verdient ja auch daran, dass sie halt einfach dieses Pay-to-Win dann aber machen. Daher sehe ich das nicht schlimm dabei, so ungefähr. Also du kannst es dir einfach zu Anfang nicht erspielen. Zu Anfang kannst du das Teil einfach nur kriegen, indem du halt, mit Pay-to-Win. Indem du halt krass da einfach reinballerst und probierst das Zeug da zu kriegen. Und dann auch noch nicht so wirklich viel davon, sondern nur ein bisschen. Daher sehe ich das eigentlich zur Zeit auch nicht so schlimm. Also die Leute, die es haben wollen, können sich dann einfach probieren zu holen. Und alle Leute, die sagen, ne, ich möchte eher ein bisschen warten, hallo übrigens Handy, die können das zum Beispiel auch tun. Die warten aber ein bisschen. Fertig. Ich bin eher der Typ, der ein bisschen wartet. Dann warte ich halt 1 Jahr, 1,5 Jahre, vielleicht muss ich nur ein halbes Jahr warten. Vielleicht nur 3 Monate, bis Good Game Studio sagt, hier, ihr dürft es auch mal probieren als Content Creator. Oder auf dem Testserver oder so. Daher, ich bin da jetzt nicht so heiß drauf, dass ihr sagt, oh cool, ich muss unbedingt alles Neueste haben, ich muss alles haben, direkt. Ich kann da gut und gerne auch gut 1 Jahr bis 1,5 Jahre warten. Vielleicht auch 2 Jahre. Wer weiß das schon so genau. Dann warte ich einfach ein bisschen, bis ich auch mal so einen coolen Feldherrn kriege, bis er vielleicht nicht mehr so geil ist. Dann kann ich trotzdem noch ein bisschen PvP spielen. Gibt es immer noch halt Menschen, die schlechtere FHs oder BVs haben. Und jetzt ja manchmal immer noch, dass halt Leute gefühlt halt immer noch einen Brand-BV oder irgendwas anderes drin haben sich ihre kompletten Truppen halt in die Burg reingestellt und haben dann einen Brand-BV drin. Ja. Dann brauchst du da auch keine Devs reinstellen. Also von daher, ja. Ja, das ist also mein Video dazu, beziehungsweise meine Aussagen dazu. Ich bedanke mich ganz herzlich, dass ich hier mitmachen durfte und ich wünsche euch allen noch einen schönen, traumhaften Tag und bis zum nächsten Mal bei irgendjemandem halt anders. Ne? Auf Wiedersehen.
I get Ekto's point. You don't always have to have everything right away, especially in a game that moves so fast. It was also the case with the introduction of the meat-eating troops. They are significantly stronger than the best meat troops. It's impossible for a player who hasn't reached legend level 950 to unlock them. These chests are expensive and can only be purchased with real money or ducats, which must be painstakingly earned. Even players who had reached the required level when the troops were introduced were unable to unlock them immediately. There were concerns that PvP, especially among the top players, could quickly become very unfair. But there's one key difference. These chests the troops can be obtained indirectly through event rewards and by earning these chests. It's still a game of chance, but the ducats in the chests are guaranteed. As you can see here, 2 ducats, skeets, gibbs, and more. It's a guarantee that you get them. That is a big difference from the gacha event. The gacha event is only a game of chance. Just this game. No strategy, no guarantee, just gambling. You can only unlock the individual items in the sets by first purchasing moon eggs with real money or buying a few from the blacksmith. And when you roll the dice, there's no guarantee that you get a piece of armor. As you can see here, only a 4.55% chance to get one of the pieces. There's no guarantee that you get them, only a 4.5% chance. And with all due respect, this has nothing to do with the strategy game anymore. Maybe you should look into reporting Stillfront to the relevant authorities in your country for gambling. Perhaps your state or country has strong laws against gambling, and who knows, if Good Game is sued, they'll have to pay up. Who knows if Stillfront is willing to take that risk. In addition, this new element introduces another risk factor. The gap between pay-to-win and pay-to-progress players and play-to-progress players will widen. Players who invest a lot of time but no money will find it harder to keep up with those who have essentially bought their supposed success. This is particularly interesting when there were only a few play-to-progress players. This is particularly interesting when there are only a few play-to-progress players who have reached high levels on a server. This difference between player types might be particularly evident on one server, the World 2 server, which was launched just a few months ago. Stairz is one of the most promising Good Game Empire creators on YouTube and the YouTuber for the World 2 server. Here's what he has to say.
Personally, I've never played when relic equipment wasn't in the game. I began playing GGE seriously around 2 years ago, and while I used red equipment at lower levels, it never held my focus like putting together relic commanders did. I think that for most players, and this was how it was for me personally, that most players find that it's difficult to PvP until you can hold a large number of troops, which most players only achieve after level 70. By that point, you're introduced to relic equipment anyways, and red equipment becomes irrelevant. The other thing that I think is important to note is that the game doesn't teach you about equipment at all. It doesn't teach you what it is or how to get it, so some players don't even interact or understand what equipment is. Advantage-wise though, I don't think red equipment has any advantage over relic. I like the complexity of relic equipment, and it creates a lot of cool and unique commanders and castellans. To be honest, I think most players will use whatever advantage that they can, um, that they can get in a game like Good Game Empire. So if it's at all better than the relic equipment that we currently have, you'll probably see me and many others using it. If the equipment is as strong as we've been led to believe, it's going to swing the PvP balance significantly. In the current meta, especially on World 2 where most people don't have new tools, there's actually a really nice balance between defending and attacking. Using temporary construction items to boost your commander or castellan isn't something that everyone knows about, but makes attacking and defending super fun. I think that equipment that has been made to be significantly stronger than the current relic equipment is going to make defending much, much harder, and therefore will make defending much less desirable. This is actually what my biggest concern at the moment is. I think that Good Game Studios needs to seriously consider their method of communication in their community posts regarding this equipment. The way I see it, there are two paths that the developers can take. The first is releasing the new equipment through the gacha event, and then later releasing it through event rewards and gold coin in the Master Blacksmith. The second is releasing the new equipment through the gacha event and keeping it exclusive to players who spend money to obtain it. Now, the first option that I mentioned is the one I hope they go through with and implement into the game. The second option, I believe, could destroy the player base and would probably see a quick downfall of the game itself, since it would be indicating that there is no place for players who want to put in time and effort into obtaining good rewards. Regardless of the outcome, Game Studios needs to be more clear when announcing these new updates and changes to be transparent with the community, whether or not the new equipment will be obtainable through various other ways after the gacha event, or if it will remain an item only obtainable through purchase. Yeah, Horde is definitely a war alliance, and it really can impact playstyle. Currently, World 2 is very peaceful, with most of the top alliances having pacts, at least for the time being. But I don't see red equipment changing much in terms of how I play. If methods are made available to obtain new equipment through events or something similar, I'm guessing that the more PvP heavy alliances such as mine will put in more effort than some other alliances to achieve it. Alliances will rally around their core values, and because one of our values is being good at PvP, we'll try to obtain the best equipment that we can. It does seem that acquiring this equipment will be extremely favored to those who spend a lot of money, and because the equipment is so strong, it will definitely give them an even bigger advantage over those who can't obtain it so easily. However, there's already such a big disparity between those who spend to those who don't, because there simply has not been enough time for the non-spenders to get very good equipment. So while yes, it will give the spenders an even bigger advantage, the gap really doesn't widen all that much.
In his opinion, this is ultimately just a drop in the bucket, especially for the World 2 server, since the game was already out of balance relatively early on. We won't know just how overpowered these equipment will be until players have actually the chance to play with it and exploit new loopholes. I swear, if ever comes out that players have duplicated this new gear, then the developers should consider whether it's still worth continuing to develop this game. Let's take a quick step back. Thanks to the announcement on March 25th, we know that the gold equipment sets won't be available until level 5 of the gacha event. To reach this level, you'll need to submit at least 30 gifts. To put this into perspective, through the Master Blacksmith, possibly a gift for all players, you will be able to make between 15 and 25 dwarves. And as you can see here, the Halo Moon is running right now, but there's no offer in the Master Blacksmith right now. So you can't even try to win something because you can't buy anything. I'm assuming here one set of 350x and one set of 150x from the Master Blacksmith, which might be resetted once or twice depending on the event schedule. That would total 1500x from the Master Blacksmith, which is equivalent to 15 dwarves. On top of that, you usually get additional 500x from a gift, so a total of 200x, which means 2000x, a total of 2000x, which means there are roughly 20 dwarves. So the golden set is only available if you spend money. You can only get these X through in-game store promotions or a special offer, and that's this special offer for 60,000 rubies with a max on 4 times to buy them. So total max cap of 4,000 Moon X. That ladder is apparently limited to 4 purchases, as if you couldn't get too many of it. What a stupid rule. The only positive thing is that the bronze set is available starting at level 1, as you can see on the overview by GenerateScamp. No further comment on that, but given the sheer volume on decorations, TCIs, and other junk like Generate tokens or relic splitters, what the fuck? The drop rates for armor pieces, they are probably in the low single digits, as you can see here. Maybe even lower, 3.8 for the mate. The rest is 4.5%. 4.55%. But maybe Ekto's right. Maybe he's right. I don't know. I shouldn't get so worked up. At the end of the day, it's just a few pixels. My condolences to anyone who has to placate their self-esteem and ego by shelling out hundreds of euros or dollars for this event just so they can get their commander. Maybe you should use that money to see a therapist or work through your life issues instead. But this is just a suggestion. Thanks to Stairz and Ekto for joining me. Thanks for Breor for letting me use clips from his videos. You'll be able to find a long uncutted version, as well as Stairz and Ekto's full responses on my secondary channel after Easter, and the shorter German version on my third channel, Toruk's Empire. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all a peaceful Easter. Go out and do something fun. Don't spend your days just watching and playing this game. See you soon.